Hey, welcome back. This is episode 6, part 1 of the Let's Make Some Noise series. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We've got a whole new lineup of pedals today, and it's quite a big batch. We've got small builders, large builders, mid-sized builders, builders from every part of the world, and this is a really good lineup. If you've been following the series so far, then perhaps maybe you already have some of the gear that we have played through in your possession. And if that's the case, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're being creative with it. And I hope some music gets inspired. Today, on instrumentation, we have Alex Alfortish. He's playing the bass over there, but he's brought some really cool digital devices with him. We've got John Madere, of course, bringing in some of his really cool synthesizers, and he's going to be playing some bass guitar as well. We've got a new player in the arena, and he's going to be a strong force on the series, Paul Emden. He's back here on the guitar right now. By the way, that's the ground effects Keto reverb chorus you're hearing right there. It's lovely. And then we've also got Harrison White today operating on camera, and Tim Marchand is going to be stopping by later as well. So, without further ado though, I think we're going to start diving in and exploring what we have on the table. Alright, to kick things off, we've got the Retroactive Pedals Dot Chaser, which is a really unique lo-fi modulation tool. It's got a nice preamp in it, so you can get things nice and saturated with a sort of tape saturation feel. It also has a secondary foot switch for even deeper modulation. You've got your typical controls. You've got your warp, which is basically the depth of your modulation. You've got a mix control, which is really handy to have on a chorus vibrato because the position of your mix is going to really affect whether you get that fully wet vibrato murky sound or you get sort of the doubled chorus effect. And you've got a lag control, so you can affect the position of your single delay line. Overall, it's really great for lo-fi applications. And also worth noting, the volume of whatever you feed into it can trigger the LDR, so you can get some randomized glitchy textures and sounds out of it. So let's check it out. We're going to play some Game Boy tunes through it. So I'm turning the lag knob, which is that delay time parameter. So that's obviously really fun to do. I'll find a fixed position for it here though. Let's click into more mode. I'm going to back off on the mix a little. So you hear that LDR being triggered. There's a lot going on. Now we have the AC Noises Urla dual resonance filter with the CMOS fuzz, which if you're not familiar with what a CMOS fuzz is, it basically is a square wave fuzz. And the idea is, you know, for anybody that's familiar with a square wave type fuzz, there's no dynamic range. It is just very synth-like and aggressive and fantastic. I'm a huge fan. So you have a few easy to follow controls on the top. You've got your fuzz volume. Your fuzz and your filter are triggered by separate foot switches, so you can use them independently, which is really cool. You can just use this as a filter pedal by itself, standalone. or you can engage the fuzz and just use it as this really cool fuzz pedal. We're going to actually demonstrate this on drum machines right now because square wave fuzz on drum machines is awesome. We're going to come back later and we're going to run some guitar through it because it's definitely worth exploring. Bass guitar is really cool as well. Again, we have our trusty OB&E expression slider that we're going to use to control the high pass and low pass filter. Let's just hear what the fuzz sounds like. I'm going to use the clean blend to roll the mix of the fuzz up. This is fully wet. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Let's introduce the filter side of the pedal, and this toggle switch in the middle is going to control whether your expression control affects the high pass filter or the low pass filter. So you've got your cutoff frequency knobs and then your peak. So this is the low pass filter. Let's turn that fuzz off. All right, let's switch to high pass. And we're going to have to change the positions of these cutoff filters in order to control the sweep. Very cool. Right on. All right, let's try this on some guitar. We're going to let Paul dig into this square wave fuzz, and we'll also engage the filter side and control it with our expression controller here. Let's hear the fuzz at full blend. We also discovered that when you roll back your guitar's volume knob, it starts to starve the pedal for even more glitchy, synth-like sounds. All right, let's turn that filter on. There's so many cool things you could do with this pedal. Yeah. Very cool. All right, moving on. We have the Jupiter Effects Fernweh. It's been really awesome working with a lot of the Jupiter Effects devices on this because I've only played a handful before this series started. I just really love the aesthetic and the design and the cool symmetry of the artwork on all their pedals. It's awesome. The Fernweh is a dual delay that has some really cool features, and it's got a lovely haunting lo-fi quality to it. It would be my guess that it's probably based off of two PT2399 chips, but I couldn't find the information about it. I'm gonna have to hit Chris up and ask him. Either way, it has similar characteristics to something like the Champion Latchy Swan Hunter or the retroactive validity sensor. It's got a single delay line in the center, and then you've got controls for dual delays on either side. You can switch from the single delay to dual delays with the right foot switch at any time. So it kind of has a practical use in that sense if you want two different delay sounds, if you want like a spacey sort of offset dual delay for maybe a bigger moment in a song, and then you want something a little bit more straightforward, you can flip on a dime. Now, the center foot switch, as with a lot of Jupiter pedals, you hold it down, you can get into this immediate oscillation that can really blow up your amp. Thanks to the Empress compressor here, I've got it dialed in a little bit heavier with the mix all the way up. We're going to kind of control some of those oscillations. So let's just kick on the pedal and hear some of the initial delay sounds. Top center knob is the time control for the single delay line, and the one below it is going to be the feedback. Alright, let's kick on both delay lines, and we're going to do a short delay time on one and a long on the other. The upper controls are the mix, and fully dimed up, you actually get a little bit of the preamp's boost. Fully up, you get a little bit of boost to your signal. So that was the center foot switch, which sent us into this sort of building oscillation. And again, you can see the compressor here catching some of that. Without the compression, things can get really extreme really fast. But the really cool thing is that when you let go, it does sort of zap out of there very quickly. Let's do 2 long delays. Slightly different times. Absolutely lovely, haunting delay. All right, another pedal from Pinebox Customs, which has quickly become one of my favorite pedal builders. The Crooked Teeth, he claims to be the favorite. The Crooked Teeth, he claims is his favorite creation so far. It's a high-gain fuzz pedal run into 2 different tremolos. You have a huge set of waveforms to select for both tremolos, and the depth and the rate controls for either. This pedal can be run in mono or stereo, and there's the ability to sync the LFOs with this switch or invert them and have offset rhythmic things going on. So you can imagine this pedal can get pretty wild. On the fuzz side of things, I think this sound is really going for the low wattage, totally saturated tube amp, and you can starve the transistors with this texture knob by turning it to the right. There's no gain knob, it is balls to the wall, and you can roll things back on your guitar's volume knob if you want to get more overdriven sound, and it works really well that way. You've also got a tone control, tap tempo. There's a lot here. Let's dig into the fuzz sound. I've got a little bit of the tremolo dialed in. Let's start the transistors here and get some more spitty fuzz sounds. Ooh, I love just compressed and gated quality of that. All right, let's hear some of this tremolo. There's so many ways to dial this in. You can see the two rates blinking on the front, the fast here and the slower one in the center. There's a lot of complexity here going on. I'm getting a less gated sound here by turning the texture knob to the left. Very cool and unique pedal, and there's really a lot more you can do with it too. All right, moving on. We have the Dr. Scientist Dusk filter, and it is a digitally controlled analog filter, and it sounds fantastic. I've played this pedal before. I've used it in many, many applications. It's got 3 modes and a lot of tricks up its sleeve as well. I really like the interface. The top 3 knobs are simple, very easy to understand. You have your filter, you have your resonance control, and you have your volume. And some pedals, it's like programming the expression controls are quite difficult. There's really nothing to sweat on this. You control your filter, and we've got the trusty OB&E expression slider to help do that, but you can also use the filter knob as well. The secondary foot switch, which is a tap tempo foot switch for LFO mode, can also do filter ramping as well, and you can use it for other cool things like slowing down the LFO. So let's just hear it on the sequence and run through a few of the modes. So obviously, just doing nice, slow manual filter sweeps is really easy and fun. And there's an envelope mode. It's going to be triggered more by dynamic responses. This is really great if you're a bass player. Let's pull that resonance back. Now we're in LFO mode. Use the tap tempo to get some really interesting sounds out of that. We've got the filter all the way open right now. Let's switch to some waveforms. We've got sawtooth. And the whole time, we can still control the filter in any of the modes with the expression. There's also a MIDI out on this. Square wave. So holding down the multi-foot switch can slow down your LFO. It's really cool because you can do a lot of things with this pedal on your board just by kind of using your foot. Yeah, very cool. Man, in the small enclosure with all the digital controllability, that I think makes Dusk one of the best filters out there on the market. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Thorpe Effects Camoflange and run some bass through that. But first, I have to mention the device that we've been using to help us route all of our synths in both the studio sessions and in these sessions as well, and that's the Land Devices Land Mixer. It's been an incredibly useful tool to have on hand. It's not exactly a pedal per se, there's no foot switch, but you have 4 inputs and you have dual mono or stereo outputs, depending on how you decide to route things, and you have an impedance control on both the outputs and all the inputs as well. So you can switch from instrument to line level on all sections, and you can also control the level and the panning of all your inputs as well. So it's an incredibly useful device, especially when you have multiple synths hooked up at the same time. For example, we've got our Game Boy synths, we've got our Digitact, we've got the Moog over here. And so we can plug everything in here and get one output from the top and control the levels all from this one device. It's really a time-saving device. So thank you, Land Devices, for sending this in. All right, as promised, we are jumping into the Thorpe Effects Camoflange. This is an all-analog flanger and designed in collaboration with Adrian and Dan Coggins, formerly of Love Tone. They really knocked it out of the park. This is an incredibly powerful flanger. Now, the knobs are very interactive, so this pedal really begs to be explored. You've got 6 controls on the front. You've got harmonics, blend, depth, treble, rate, and a manual control that is going to control your delay time. We found a setting that we like already, and analog flanger on bass is one of my favorite applications. So let's just click it on and see what it sounds like. Everybody loves those nice metallic swooshy sounds that flanger brings to the table. In the center position, the harmonics knob will cancel out the regenerative feedback. And to either side, you can get either even or odd order harmonics. Yeah, you're already hearing some of the extreme sounds this pedal can do. The blend at center is going to provide the deepest notch, which is true for most modulation pedals in the vein of chorus or phaser, flanger, and things of a similar nature. Of course, depth is going to increase the intensity of the effect. Oh man, that's so cool sounding. Of course, the rate can slow things down so you can get some nice, real slow phasing sweeps. Or we can crank it up and get that fast pulsing sound we all like. Let's roll that depth back a little bit so we can find a more usable sound there. Absolutely. The treble control, in conjunction with the harmonics, can also produce some pretty wild sounds out of this thing. It's also worth noting that there's a separate dry and wet output on the top of the pedal, which is really handy if you want to get some more of the extreme sounds out of it, but blend it with something else clean. Overall, extremely versatile pedal. Sounds amazing. All right, we have another entry from Janis Altmanis, the Miesnieks Overdrive Distortion. There's not a lot written up about this on the site, but I have played this pedal before, and from what I've seen other demo artists saying, I agree. You cannot find a bad sound inside this pedal. And I know that I say that about several, but there really are some pedals that it is quite true. goes from low to mid gain, and then with the flick of a switch, you can enter extremely high gain territory. So when it says it's an overdrive / distortion, it means it. Unlike some pedals that kind of claim that, you can absolutely do some Metallica riffs on this if you so wanted to. You've got a simple control layout. Other than that, you've got tone, you've got your volume, and you have your gain. Let's hear it full gain and just kind of kick off with that. You can absolutely hear it's a very beefy overdrive. Let's go into some lower gain territory. Yeah, you could absolutely do some clean bluesy stuff on this if you want. Nice and saturated. Still in the first level of gain. Next, we have the lovely KMA Machines Cirrus, which is a delay and a reverb in one box, but it is really so many things beyond that. It's a very singular pedal. I've never really quite encountered anything like it. So you have independent controls for the delay and the reverb side of things, and then you've got different modes of delay and reverb that are really interesting. So when this pedal came out, I think it really helped put KMA a lot higher on the map because everybody kind of recognized the ingenuity of this pedal. The expression control setup is really handy and easy to dial in as well, whereas like with some pedals for expression, it's like you've got to hold down the foot switch, then you've got to like set your parameters to the minimum and maximum and things like that. With this, there's just a center knob. You follow the trails to the names of the controls, and boom, you're controlling that parameter. And again, as usual, I've got my OB&E expression ramper. I like to do things manually for these shoots, so we'll get into that. And I have it set up to the time control right now. But there's so much more beyond that to this pedal, right? You can dial in your amount of delay, and you can dial in your amount of reverb. You can reverse the order of delay into the reverb or reverb into the delay. And some of the modes are just really unique, like the low pass and the high pass envelopes that you can trigger on the reverb with their own sensitivity knobs. You've got a modulated reverb, modulated delay. You've got an octave delay. I don't see that very often at all. And you have a sample and hold delay to add these cool sequences. Let's just get into some of the sounds, and then we'll see what it does. So right now we have the modulated delay blended with the high-pass filter mode on the reverb. And Tim's pick attack is going to determine whether the envelope opens up on that high-pass filter. You got individual decay and damp controls for the reverb itself. Of course, you have time and repeats for the delay. Try the octave delay. The sensitivity knob at the bottom is going to control some of your secondary parameters. In this case, how much of the octave effect we want to hear. Holding either foot switch down puts one or the other side into sort of an infinite mode. Holding both of them down sample and hold. Let's crank up the repeats on that, see what happens. Let's play with that time control. Alright, we'll roll the repeats back and kind of clear the palette, right? The modulated reverb can get quite big. Let's really get things wet. And we'll go back to the modulated delay, and let's reverse the order here and see what happens. Back off on that decay time. So obviously you can get into some incredible ambience with this pedal. On the neck pickup, you're going to hear a lot more of a darker wash. It really just depends on the source signal that you're feeding in through it. Of course, you can use the effects independently, so just use this as a standard delay pedal if you want. Or we can knock the delay out and just use the reverb. There's that infinite hold on the reverb side. There's also an effects loop built in, so a lot of tonal possibilities with the Cirrus. All right, the ground control audio Locust. This is a silicon distortion from the creators of the Noodles preamp boost pedal that was in my top 10 list from 21. Really love that pedal. I've actually had their whole lineup at this point, from their Serpent's compressor to their Amaterasu and their Tsukiyomi, and everything from ground control just sounds fantastic to me. I wasn't sure what to expect with the Locust when Sebastian was telling me about it, but now that we got it in our hands, I am excited to say that I'm a huge fan of the waspy qualities of this distortion. So it's fairly simple. You've got gain, and you've got this depth control that interacts with the tone control in here. It's not a typical tone control. Lots of gain on tap, and you can roll things back. I feel like there are a lot of applications for this pedal, and I would also like to hear it eventually running through some drums and absolutely on bass guitar. But let's dig into it at high gain with some of the bassier settings. Roll back the gain, cleans up and makes a nice warm overdrive. All right, let's flip the depth switch to increase the low mid notch. Again, there's that very sick, waspy texture. Absolutely almost has the qualities of an analog octave fuzz. jumping onto the ground effects Keto, and I have not been shy that I absolutely adore this pedal. What is it? It's a small box spring reverb and a chorus as well. When you combine these two tones, you just get dripping, wet, watery surf vibe for days. You can't find a bad sound inside this pedal. The reverb can go pretty extreme. You can dial it back for something more subtle if you want. And you can do all the typical chorus things that you want to do. But again, when you combine things, it's really where the magic of this pedal happens. Let's just click on both and hear it right at first. So rate, of course, is going to control the vibrato rate. So you can get some warbly sounds out of it. You can use the spring reverb by itself for traditional surf rock kind of sounds. And you can use the chorus by itself. So it's really a multi-function pedal. You can fill 2 spots on your board if you want it to. The Greer Amps Lightspeed Organic Overdrive. So what is an organic overdrive, right? Well, I think it's their nod of the head to what some people like to call a transparent drive. And that was something that kind of got really popular a few years back, and everybody wanted to have a transparent drive. Well, what is this all talking about? Well, some of you probably already know for sure, of course, but I think the idea is just capturing the tone of your amp and your pickups kind of unaffected. Of course, there's always going to be some kind of effect, but some people just really just don't like to overcolor their signal, right? It's very responsive, very amp-like, and very warm. It's pretty low gain, but you can definitely get some grit with it. And one of my favorite things to do with it is just to get some rolled back clean tones, but it also cleans up nicely with your guitar's volume knob as well. Let's hear it at full gain. The frequency knob is basically your tone control. It sounds more like a cutoff filter to me. So you can find your sound there wherever you feel is bright or dark enough. Let's roll the gain back here. Kind of compensate on the frequency knob to keep things nice and clear and sharp sounding. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's gain up in here with the volumes guitar knob rolled back. All right, let's gain up one more time. Absolutely, there's not a bad sound inside this pedal. Fantastic job, Greer. Cool. All right, moving on, we have one of my favorite pedal builders out there right now, Ranger Effects. And this is the awesome little Reverb-X, tiny compact pedal with a lot of really cool features. It's a digital reverb, and it's also a gated reverb as well. You can use it in kind of standard situations. There's a trigger on the bottom, as most of his enclosures have, that allow you to switch from gated to standard mode. And there's also a dark foot switch, so you can get brighter reverb tones or darker. A lot of these smaller pedals from Ranger also have an input overload light, so you can actually see if you're clipping the front end of the pedal. It's awesome. And you've got a separate output knob for your master volume, and then you have a level of the reverb effect itself, the size of the reverb, and you can add distortion into your reverb sound. Not to mention, a lot of his pedals have this compatibility with his Igor, however you pronounce it, foot switch controller that you can step on, you can squeeze with your hand, you can do a lot of cool different features. In this aspect, we can do momentary bypass. So let's just hear what the reverb sounds like itself. It's a pretty big plate style reverb, and you can dial it back for more subtle sounds. If I let go of the Igor, we go fully dry again. Let's put it back on and let's hear what some of the distortion sounds like. This reverb's great for drum machines. I've had several pedals great for drum machines today. All right, let's hear dark mode. And you can see we actually just clipped the input a little bit, and the light just lit up a little bit. It's a really good indicator of setting your levels before you play. It's really handy to have. A lot of pedals should have that. All right, let's hear what the gated reverb sounds like. I'm gonna roll that distortion off. Gated reverb is one of those things that's really special, and you can discover a lot of interesting ways to play. And right now we're feeding it both drums and a melodic synth. So you're hearing a lot of information duck out at the end of the attack of some of these notes. Very cool. Absolutely one of my favorite digital reverb pedals. Cool. The Malaise Forever Customs Clubber Lang. This is the pedal I've seen around for a while, and I've always wanted to try, so I was really excited when they sent it in. I love harmonic percolators, and this is their love letter to that. But it is very unique in and of itself because it marries a MOSFET stage that slams into the front of the percolator. And when these two sounds come together, you get this really blown out, smashed, fizzy, textural fuzz that's extremely high gain, and it just feels really sticky and good. What we've discovered about this pedal too that we really like is that you can use both of these gain stages independently, and they both get pretty high gain standalone, and they both roll back, and they both clean up really well. So let's just click it on full force and dig right in. love that texture. Sustain is unreal too. Yeah, let's hear just the percolator side. Just the MOSFET. Let's marry the two. Next up is the Luminary V2 from Walrus, which, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated pitch pedals on the market. Not that it isn't common, but I feel like I should see it around more than I do. There's so many features, there's so many options, and there are 3 onboard presets, plus just a manual mode, which is going to always reflect wherever the knob positions are on the front face of the pedal. So you've got octave down, octave up, and then you have 2 octaves down, 2 octaves up. You can blend any amount of all 4 of those things at any one time. So obviously a lot of different sounds. If you're familiar with the POG, if you're a POG user, you can do a lot of the same things here, right? Personally, I feel like the tracking is also pretty fantastic in this pedal. Dry, wet blend, always extremely handy to have with digital pitch devices. But you also have one of my favorite features, the attack knob, where you can kill some of that front end of your sound and really get these nice swell ends. You can get even more organ tones out of it once you start blending voices. You have a filter that you can sweep here, and you can also plug in an expression pedal, and there's internal dip switches where you can decide which parameter or multiple parameters you want to sweep. So filter sweeping is an awesome feature on this pitch pedal, I think. And also a tremolo where the depth and the rate increase as you increase it to the right. It's very cool. Let's just see some simple uses, like maybe using this to turn your guitar into a bass. As with all digital pitch pedals, if you want that kind of smooth tracking, it's all about finding a nice balance in the clean and the wet blend. All right. Of course, if we do an octave up, any kind of these digital sounds can get kind of cheesy if we go all the way to the right. As you dial them back, kind of blend it in with your signal. You can see a lot of potential uses for that. Pairing this with a dirt or a drive when you have an octave up is a really cool way to sort of punch out in your lead a little bit more. Let's start blending voices. So now we have a little bit of all 4 voices in here. Already very organ-like. All right, let's kill some of that attack and add some tremolo. What better way to utilize a really pretty organ sound than to run it into other pedals like reverb? So at this point, you've entirely transformed the sound of your guitar. Personally, I think digital pitch pedals are one of the best way to radicalize your sound. Apollo 7 from Spaceman Effects. If anybody knows anything about Spaceman, they know dirt. All of their pedals have their signature aesthetic charm. It is hard not to look at a Spaceman pedal and just ooh and ah, because it just looks like something you want to immediately hold and grab in your hand and put on a shelf, you know. The Apollo 7 is a rich medium gain drive that was taken from the overdrive circuit of their Voyager 1 tremolo. I think there were a lot of people that loved that sound so much they decided to make it its own thing. The LED mode is the original sound of that, but you also have a silicon mode for more aggressive compressed sounds, and then you have a no clipping mode for a more open dynamic response feel. Tone knob is a high-end roll-off, and of course you have volume and gain. Let's roll up our guitar's volume knob and the gain here as well and see what we get. We are in LED mode. Let's switch to no clipping. We're going to attenuate the volume a little bit. Let's hear silicon. Also roll the gain back to get cleaner drive sounds that work really well as well. Very nice. Absolutely. We love Spaceman Effects over here.